Guys, so welcome back to the podcast. We got a little bit of a different face here. Other than Lambert, we got Shayne. So welcome, Shayne.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So Lambert, as you guys know, works for Ragnar. He travels a ton. So whenever he's out of town, Shayne, you're going to be picking up the mic and trying to make me sound smarter or dumber. I don't know, probably dumber because you got your laptop and notes and you're ready, man. I'm just like, how can I make this shit up? But anyway, I just wanted to say, this is Shayne. You've been at Ute for a couple years.
For about 2 years now, on and off, and it's been a great ride. I've actually shopped around at different gyms here in the valley, and the community here keeps me coming back, and the facilities is great, and you guys have all the toys, so there's a good arsenal and a good quiver, if you will.
Have fun things to play with.
Yep.
Yeah, I know we've kind of added over the years. That's cool though. I didn't know that you shopped around and looked at other gyms and stuff.
Yes, sir. So when my wife and I first moved to Salt Lake in May of 17, I landed at Brickwall, which was a pretty good experience for a while, but we kind of grew apart, and I ended up here, and this has been a great change. I truly enjoy the community aspect, and this has been par none. I've been all over the country, dropping in at different boxes and, also Globo gyms. And this is a special allure, if you will, around Ute CrossFit.
Yeah, I know. Everywhere you go, you can kind of hear a little bit. It depends on how long you've been doing CrossFit and a little bit about Ute. But yeah, that's awesome, dude. I didn't know that. Shayne is kind of a book nerd, and he's super fucking smart. So
sort of a book nerd. I don't want to say I'm super smart. There's much smarter people out there. There's much smarter people out there, and I am a drop in the bucket.
I know, but I know whenever we approached you about doing this, you were like, yeah, I'm going to go home and take notes. And you came back with your notebook. I was like, well, all right, I'm in over my head. Here we go.
Yes, sir.
So that's good.
I actually need to take a second and formally thank you and Britt for allowing me the opportunity to take my L1. That was a really wonderful experience, and doing it with Lambert was cool too. And actually, one of the facilitators was a local guy out of Park City, big skier, and that's a big part of my life. And I was able to balance conceptual questions off of him with appropriate training models for mountain pursuits specifically.
That's cool.
It was really applicable to my growth as an athlete.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. See, told you he's smart. See the words. I'm like, shit, dang. You're like, some conceptual applicable. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm in over my head. But no, that's awesome, though. And I'm really happy we're able to provide that for you because the L1 is unlike anything. Like I was talking to a lady earlier today, and she's talking about that she is a personal trainer and has the certifications and stuff, but she's not L1 certified. She may be, but she was like, I was kind of caught off guard that they don't require any of those things. And I'm like, well, CrossFit is its own thing. You know what I mean? Like they have their own ways of thinking, and a lot of other if you go the collegiate way of getting a degree, or if you go to ACSM, NAS, NASM, all those things, it's like each one has their own way of thinking, and CrossFit definitely has its own way. But I really liked the way CrossFit kind of approaches fitness.
Absolutely. So with my background, I should start with I played high school football in Ohio, actually similar to Lambert. High school football in Ohio was a big deal, to say the least, similar to Texas or Florida. And I was at a pretty big high school. A lot of big names have rolled through my high school, and I was pretty much a medium fish in a big pond, if you will, there in the football realm. But I was able to play a year of college football at the D3 level, similar to Lambert.
Oh, damn. Okay.
And that was at Plymouth State in New Hampshire. And so I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I grew up the son of a military man. My dad was a cavalry scout early on in his Army career, but then he was doing in-flight refueling, hot refueling for helicopters as a guardsman at Rickenbacker Air Force Base in Columbus, Ohio. So that's where we ended up, and Pickerington Central was my high school, and we actually just won the state championship in football not too long ago, which was I gotta say, shout out to Coach Sherritt and Coach Lamonaco and the rest of the coaching staff there at Pickerington Central. You guys have bred a lot of phenomenal athletes and men off the field as well.
That's cool.
A lot of NFL players have rolled through there.
Really? Wow.
Absolutely. It's that was a great environment to grow up in, and it definitely prepared me for my military endeavors. And I spent a 6-year enlistment with the Air Force Reserves out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio after my year of college football.
Gotcha.
And I decided that, it was a great career path, but I wanted to do my 6 years and get out.
Yeah.
But I was also blessed with the opportunity to go to school at Ohio State for my undergrad and graduate degree, finish that out in actually sports management. So when I came back to Utah for the first time, believe it or not, I've been telling this story a lot recently. Salt Lake City was what I romanticized as a kid, what Denver was going to be like. Until I went to Denver, and Denver's a great city. It's super fun, but it's not what I wanted. And so I actually have my eyes set on Portland, Oregon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have family up there. I proposed to my wife, Ivy, in Oregon on Mount Hood. My family has a cabin on Mount Hood, and it's very nostalgic.
That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, whenever I didn't know anything about Salt Lake City before I moved here. Nothing. I didn't even know like what pictures of SLC look like. I was like, yeah, sure, let's go.
Yeah, honestly, I thought it was flyover country, but in hindsight, people think Ohio is flyover country. Same with Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's one of those states in between, right? Yep, sure.
Sure.
But I thought today would be a good podcast to talk to you about like in the CrossFit world, it's considered like engine building or building your engine, basically just learning how to breathe better and to move through workouts better and things, because you have all of this extensive background in a lot of sports and a lot of different styles of training. And then, too, you love research. You love to read. So I thought that'd be an awesome topic to talk about. And I know that we're going to take this everywhere. So, I'm excited to see where this goes. So for a lot of you guys that's been listening for the last couple episodes, you know that we've talked about, like, scaling. Me and Lambert talked about, like, when to scale and how to scale and trying to hit the intended stimulus of the workouts. And by the intended meaning, like, X amount of reps, X amount of time, these different things that are variables in each workout. And there's a reason that we program workouts a certain way. And I love the idea of diving deeper into these things, just because a lot of times people don't know. A lot of times people think that we're just making up shit at the, whatever, just pulling it out of our back pocket. Like, 21 power cleans. Cool, yeah, it works. You know what I mean? It's like, no, well, sure, but also no.
Sure, but no.
Yeah.
That's the Hopper model that we talked about earlier, which is, in theory great, but does have its flaws. So for you guys that don't
know, the Hopper model is basically, and this is kind of, whenever I first started CrossFit, I heard of the Hopper model, and I kind of applied it towards me, and you guys can do the same. But the Hopper model, basically, if you put it in, think like bingo, like you have all the balls and stuff like that, and each ball has something different written on it, like a time domain of like an hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. You have 4 time, you have AMRAP, you have just all these different variations of styles of workouts. You have all the different variations of movements, like pull-ups, bar muscle-ups, push-ups, cleans, name it. Anything in the world, name it. Like a bike a 10K. You have a swim 5 miles.
Cross-country ski a few kilometers.
Yes, yeah, anything. Can you put it in the hopper, mix it all up, draw X amount of balls, make this workout up? Can you do it? And what I was referring to, I applied to myself, was if I put all the movements on a list, if any of these come up in a workout, can I do them as prescribed? Yes or no? And if the answer was no, cool, I need to work on those things to make it to where I can. Even if like pistols destroy my knees, but I can do them. I don't do them, but if I had to, I can. You know what I mean? So it's like you just you have your list of things that you can kind of draw from, and that's where that Hopper model kind of comes from, like you were saying.
Yes, sir. And it's going back to the true definition of CrossFit, which is functional fitness with varied outside stimulus, right? And so it's just an unlimited amount of that, different types of outside stimulus and different capacities in that hopper, and out pops a workout, which is great. But when you're looking at building an engine in particular, you do have to complement your Metcon training well, or else you're going to experience a common pitfall of burnout. And you and Lambert have talked about it extensively before, so
Yeah.
we shouldn't beat a dead horse about that. But it's definitely a common pitfall for, let's say, someone that's pulls the trigger on a half marathon, doesn't train until the 2 weeks before, and they're like, oh man, I've got to get a few 8 to 10 mile runs in this week now.
Yeah.
And then you go outside here in Salt Lake in particular, and it gets cold here, but it also gets hot.
Yeah, it gets like dry hot.
And so like dangerous hot when you're running, and you got to make sure you're building up to that appropriately.
Yeah, and the whole thought process behind like the keeping burnout from happening is varying up your training enough to where you're not, because like if you were to do running, solely running, like I love running, it's so great, I hate running, but if you're like I love running and it's so great and I want to keep doing it, once you're like 6 months in, that's all you've been doing, you're gonna get burned out mentally just because you're like, cool, I'm gonna go run again. Same thing with like weightlifting, same thing with CrossFit, but with what you were saying is being able to vary it up enough to you're doing the right things, that you're not pushing yourself past a limit of being able to come back from.
Yes, and I do have a story. I was transitioning from being a collegiate football player. I was actually playing fullback, and I was 240, 245. Running a 1920 style power I offense, 90% run, just meeting Mike or Sam in the A or B gap, like every rep. So just thick. And I joined the military and I went to the MEP station, and this is a real thing. I was probably the fittest person in the room, and truthfully the fittest person in the room, because it's a wide range of people that are going to the MEP station. And, maybe I wasn't like the fittest, but all around, but I was definitely a standout in that room, but I was told that I had to lose 20 pounds. And so it was a realization for me that, in the next 4 months, I need to lose 20 pounds. How am I going to do that? I transitioned to being a runner. And so what we're going to talk about later is the different metabolic pathways. And as a football player in particular, you're extremely proficient in what's called the phosphagen metabolic pathway, which is essentially engaging your ATP system, explosive movements for 10 seconds or less.
Right. Yeah. And if you like a lot of those, like, and again, this goes back to a lot of times whenever people think that we're making up workouts, we're literally just kind of pulling it out of our ass, just making it up. But no, there's, like you were saying, like each style of training has a certain kind of energy pathway that you use. So whenever you work out, like let's say a bear comes at you and you take off fucking running and you're like, I want to live, I'm going to sprint as hard as I can. That's an energy pathway. Mm-hmm. If you're like, okay, I need to chase down this deer for the next until it dies. Yep. You're just going to keep running. So it's like that's a different pathway. If you need to pick up a weight because a tree fell over and you need to pick that up to move it off the path in order for the rest of the group to get by, that's a different energy pathway. So, and I'm using all these things of like real world application because we can use it in the gym like a deadlift, or we're going to run a 10K, or, it's like there's different applications to everything of what we do in the gym. But each thing we use a different energy pathway. And whenever you're training those different energy pathways, like you were saying, it keeps you from getting burned out. And whenever you're training like something like football, it's very fast, very explosive. Go as hard as you can for possibly a minute and a half.
Less than.
I know, but I'm saying like that's like a long time. Because like a normal play is what, 30 seconds?
Oh, no. Average football play is less than, I would say, 8 seconds.
Oh, damn. No way, really?
Absolutely.
Okay. But yeah, so even shorter. And it's
shorter.
Like go, okay, stop and rest.
For about a minute.
Yeah, and then do it again, and do it again, and do it again for.
And so actually, Chip Kelly introducing the high-speed offense to Oregon was revolutionary, because you had people going into the next metabolic pathway, which was the glycotic and lactative metabolic pathway. So he was matching people up on defense that were not proficient in that. Maybe they were a killer in the phosphagen aspect, but by later down the drive, you're just getting grinded, mushed because it's always hurry up offense.
Because it's, imagine this, like thinking about CrossFit, like, all right, everybody knows the assault bike, the demon bike. If I say hop on there and I want you to give me a 20-second all-out sprint, you're going to rest for 40 seconds, and I want you to repeat that 35 times. I don't know, just making up a number. That sounds brutal, right?
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. Your output is just going to go straight through the floor just because you burn through that so fast and you can't recover it quick enough. So that's basically what they were doing, was like, hit this play, come back, hit this play, come back, hit this play, come back. And right.
And your example too. Think about the people that we have in the gym. Who are the best people that would survive in that workout?
Nate Enderle.
Right. Who else?
I mean,
Lambert.
All football players.
Yeah.
Lambert, all the bigger guys. That
I've transitioned from that, but I definitely see like Nate Enderle being incredibly proficient in your ATP system and your phosphagen metabolic pathway.
Yeah.
But bringing that all around, to that MEP station story, I decided that I was going to run a marathon too. And I have. And ever since I've ran 2 marathons, 1 trail, 1 road, I decided that I'd check that off the bucket list. I'm never going to do that again. On the road, at least. Ooh, my joints.
Yeah. That downhill, so good. And concrete, so good.
I truthfully love trail running, getting up in the mountains. Every summer, I typically run.
I went a couple times a couple years ago, and I ate shit about 5 times. It's because you're like, oh, this is so beautiful. Rock. Pow.
And that's why I like it, because you also engage your mind.
Yeah,
which is
the whole time. You're watching where you're going. You're trying to watch stuff.
Your footwork actually gets improved significantly versus running on a track or the road, right? Because you can kind of zone out. You can't zone out on the trail.
No, not at all.
And so going back to my football days, hitting ladders. Actually, I've used ladders before since football, warming up for CrossFit.
Yeah.
But, there is a certain level of footwork involved there. And that's what the beauty of trail running is for me personally, is that you are forced not to zone out. You're engaged mentally, and you're in a beautiful spot. Yeah. I mean, look at Utah. This place is
ridiculous.
Wild.
Such a hidden gym.
Such a hidden gym. Don't move here.
Yeah, don't move here. It's so gross. It's ugly. But no, yeah, I agree with you. So like the little bit of running, so I did a half marathon. I just ran on my own, just doing random shit a couple years ago, just running. And I would zone out for like an hour, just running, be like, okay, turn left. Okay, well, it's straight, slow down. It's like my music could be playing. I'm not really paying attention. You just zone out. And that gets old real fast because it's like, oh, fuck, I need to go run for an hour. This sucks. And you just shut your brain off and go run. You know what I mean? But like trail running, the moment you're going, you're looking where you're going, you're working on your feet. Like, okay, if I take 3 steps and hop here, okay, I'm going to step over that. Okay, don't catch your toe here. Okay, you caught your toe. Let's now just, just try not to fall on your face. But no, I can see that. That's pretty interesting.
And going back to your example earlier about being chased by a bear,
yeah, that's a possibility.
You're not going to be getting like a 400-meter straightaway perfectly paid for you in that scenario. No. You're going to be
terrifying. Probably going to die.
Right. So and that goes being fit for your environment, and that's the whole purpose of what we're doing here, right?
Yeah. And we can kind of lean into what you just said, like the whole purpose of what we're doing here on the CrossFit things is CrossFit's interesting just because it's a fitness regimen that people tend to lean into for certain reasons, and it's like lose weight. I want to be able to play with my kids more. I want to be able to like mow my yard, go skiing, go mountain biking, like normal real world things. And people tend to get kind of caught up in the CrossFit world of getting better at CrossFit for getting better at CrossFit. But like a lot of the reasons most people join is to get better at these other things. And we can apply, like I know we haven't even touched on how to actually build a better engine, and we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But if you look at this, like if you look at CrossFit and apply it towards, like basically if I play any sports, you saw me playing ultimate frisbee when we played.
Yeah.
It's like I'm the most athletic person out there.
100%.
Like I work my ass off, but I look like an idiot. Just because it's not natural for me. I didn't grow up playing sports. I didn't grow up learning how to move like an athlete. But like CrossFit has prepared me in the sense of like strength and power and speed and those things that I was able to build because of CrossFit that I can apply to any real world. So if you look at any of those things that we do in the gym and apply them, like right now I'm writing a program for Chris Templin. It's a getting ready for ski season. And everybody's like, it just ended, bro. And he's like, I know. I got to get ready. And so I'm working on just his legs and just like leg endurance and those kinds of things with him. And for him, it's a lot of full range of motion movements and stuff. But if you learn to apply this building a better engine and also building a better just all around the hopper model, pull it out, can you apply it to anything out in life? It makes life so much easier. It makes it so much better.
And going to what you were saying, we actually have a lot of skiers here in the gym. And I myself, that's one of the biggest reasons why I moved to Utah in particular. I worked at a ski shop during my enlistment and college time in Columbus, Ohio, which is so silly to think about in hindsight because it was an incredibly thorough ski shop.
Yeah.
And I, did in-depth technical boot fitting. Anatomy for the foot is pretty crazy.
Yeah, the amount of like bones and muscles in your foot is wild. It
is wild. It's probably, the greatest invention on the human body, I would say.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating because they act as springs going forward. And the stability that your foot naturally provides is just par none, right? As long as you train it, right?
Right.
You have to train it because we have, unfortunately, been in a society where people strap on things to our feet at a young age, and we never understand what it feels like to be like rooted on a floor.
Yeah. So I think about it as a kid, I used to run around barefoot all the time.
And I did not.
Really?
And I have flat feet.
I have the highest arches.
Right.
Yeah, like as a kid, that's like it was rare that I wore shoes. Like we'd be out in the middle of nowhere. I'd outrun people on gravel roads.
Yeah.
Make no sense. My brother would be like, go race that guy. I'd be like, all right, cool. Boom, and I would just fly. And like it was because my feet were tough. I had the good arches.
And they were structurally, they were stimulated from a young age to positively adapt.
Yes.
And I also want to point out, like, everything that we're doing here in the gym and outside the gym when we're doing what we call fitness, right? We're trying to search for what's called positive adaptation.
Right.
And so building a better engine really is, we've already talked about the phosphagen pathway, the glycotic / lactative pathway, but the building the better engine, you're really adhering to what the oxidative pathway is. And the interesting thing about the oxidative pathway is the threshold is, it's always relevant for every athlete's mental and physical capabilities. And I add mental in there for a reason.
Yeah, because if you guys that don't know, the oxidative is going to be your long one. Like long, like say 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes plus.
The easiest way to explain this is that you are able to hold a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
If you can hold a conversation, that means you're utilizing your aerobic pathways and or your aerobic energy systems and your oxidative pathways, and you're not dipping into an anaerobic state, which if you're looking to build a better engine, and you're doing a long-term sustained activity such as you're swimming, you're biking, you're running for 40 minutes plus, you want to stay in that state and not fall into a trap of, burning out too early, because you're essentially burning fat at that level, right? And
burning through oxygen and fat.
And a lot of calories, which we should talk about nutrition at some point.
We talked a little bit about it on the last podcast about like the differences in like your long, like doing an hour's run versus an hour weightlifting. We talked about that a little bit on the last one, just touched on it, just like which one burned more calories and those things. The nutrition talk I want to have one day, which we will, and I want to be able to sit in on that. I want to be like, here's where we're at from start to finish nutrition, because as you know, as I know, everybody knows that nutrition is person to person, and it's very unique.
Every body is different.
Yeah, and there's a lot that goes into that. And we kind of touched on that a little bit the last one, but I do want to dive a lot deeper into that, just because that's going to be new. Like, people can work out 5-6 times a week. They can work out 2 a days, all these different things, but you cannot outwork a bad diet.
No,
at all. Like a lot of people say, like, oh, I'll just do some extra running and I'll get. No, it doesn't work that way.
It does not work like that.
Like, it might work for a little bit, but eventually you're going to plateau out, and you're going to stop seeing any kind of changes that you want to see to meet your goals, because you're putting bad fuel into your body.
And CrossFit was onto something early on with this.
Yeah.
If anyone is familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's putting like basic survival assets at the very bottom of a pyramid. Like, you have to have it, similar to a food pyramid. You have to have.
It's like you have your. It's like the base of a house.
I don't even want to say that because food pyramid's flawed. Let's throw
but it's like the base of a house. You have to have a good foundation for the rest of the house just to be even to survive.
And Maslow eventually worked up to to happiness in different ways and fulfillment, and eventually you got to the top, which was what he called self-actualization. And CrossFit actually did something similar.
Yeah.
And at the very bottom is
It's nutrition.
it's nutrition.
Yeah, it goes nutrition, gymnastics, weightlifting, and throwing, and then sport. And a lot of times people skip all of that and go straight to sport. And they're like, because they'll come in and be like, bro, how do I get where I'm competing? And I'm like, okay.
You need to slow down there, guy. But
Well, it goes, nutrition, it goes nutrition, Metcon, gymnastics, weightlifting and throwing, sport. So I'm skipped the Metcon. So the metabolic conditioning. So for you guys that don't know what Metcon stand for, it means metabolic conditioning. So it's just saying of working out of any kind, getting out of breath, those kinds of things. So once you dial in your nutrition and you get like, if you take like a workout like Helen, to where it's 3 rounds, 400-meter run, 21 kettlebell swings, 12 pull-ups. If you take a workout like that, and I'm like, all right, we're going to do this 3 rounds, 400-meter run, go. And if it takes you 8 minutes to run a 400, well, okay, our metabolic conditioning is pretty garbage. So we need to work on that. You know what I mean? Because there are specific time domains, stuff like that. And see, did I get it right? Nutrition, metabolic. Yeah, it's like I know what I'm talking about.
It's like you know what you're talking about. And something else to know, so nutrition's at the base, right?
Yes.
Then you go the Metcon, gymnastics, and then it's weightlifting / throwing.
Yeah.
So in throwing, you also have accuracy, right?
Yeah.
Which in what we do here is a wall ball, but if you play intramural sports outside of the gym,
Yep.
I mean, there's 1,000 different cases there. But I want to point out that the Metcon, gymnastics, weightlifting / throwing are all general physical programming. Right. Okay. So that's what we do here.
Yeah.
Right. You have to have the nutrition in check at home, and you can participate in sport outside of the gym, but the time spent in the gym is focusing on these middle 3 aspects of the theoretical hierarchy of the athlete.
Right. Yeah, and then so because of the gym, we can focus on those middle 3, and we can help you with those middle 3. Once you get those middle 3 down, in the sense of like, okay, I have a steady regimen, I know what I'm doing, I go to the gym, I work on these middle 3, cool. But the thing is without that base, like we get people in here all the time that they don't focus on anything nutrition at all, and their PRs go up, their running gets faster, their gymnastics in the sense of like pulling, pushing, like push-ups, spatial awareness,
their ability
all
to
of that,
out
all of that
neurological
freaking
pathway.
Yep, all that goes way up. Yep. But the issue is that their body type never changes. They're like let's say they need to lose like 20 to 30 pounds of fat. None of that changes. And the reason why is because they're fueling their body to maintain what they have on them right now, even though they're putting it themselves, like talking about the moving and stuff. But maybe they come in, like they've never worked out a day in their life and say they're like 20 pounds overweight and they lose like 5 to 10 pounds immediately. That happens a lot just because you go from 0
especially
to
with
a lot.
men, testosterone's interesting.
Yeah, and it spikes the moment you start actually doing some weightlifting, or goes up rather. But if you stop focusing on nutrition, or if you don't ever focus on it, then that's going to cause a lot of issues. And kind of bringing it back to the engine side of things, if we're not focusing on these, it's like gumming up your engine. It's like you're putting in dirty gasoline into your car, and it's going to start gumming it up. Like you're not getting enough spray off your fuel injectors. It's not spraying. It's like if you ever like I'm sure you have, like whenever you get in your shower and like your shower head, like some of the little holes aren't really spraying correctly. It's kind of like it's just because it's gummed up and you kind of wiggle it and then it finally starts spraying correctly.
Absolutely.
It's like all that calcium buildup and all that stuff gumming up. That's basically what you're doing when you eat shit food.
Yep.
It's you're not letting your body get the right fuel to the right cells because it's trying to break the stuff down. Like alcohol is poison. Every time you drink, you're drinking poison. So your body's trying to get rid of that and get it out of the system. So that's why you end up feeling like shit the next couple of days, is because your body was in overdrive trying to go through that. So basically, like whenever you hear a lot of the top guys and girls, the athletes, they're like, my nutrition's been on point and I'm really dialed in. It does make such a massive difference. And it's not even just weight loss. It's performance. It's how your body feels. Are you waking up groggy? Are you hitting that midday crash? Different stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So like if you're going to able to build that good foundation, everything else on the top is just going to like escalate even more.
Absolutely. And everything will benefit from like even myself. I could move a lot better, and I could probably even PR, let's say, a snatch or a clean if I lost 5 pounds.
Right.
Because I'll be moving faster.
Right. And your joints will hurt less.
Joints will hurt less.
All those different things.
Absolutely. And so, there is value in building the better engine by like setting yourself up to being able to lose those 5 pounds if you recognize that in yourself, right?
Yeah.
But every body is different, right?
Yeah.
And every body needs to withstand outside stimuluses differently. My profession is different than your profession.
Yep.
And, I actually came from a military background where my entire role for the 445th Security Forces Squadron in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, I was deployable with anywhere in the world within 72 hours. And so I was not necessarily operational stateside. I went on a few annual tours where I did stuff, but realistically, my entire Air Force career was training, and I always like to say I was playing Army because I was doing forward air base security. So anything that involved that, running convoys, urban shoot, move, communicate, tactical clearing, a lot of just a wide breadth to just be deployable.
You need to be ready.
Hours.
Need to be ready at any point.
And so I actually kind of got into the functional fitness scene then. Hardcore, because I was still running a lot. This was probably after my marathon that I really went down the functional fitness rabbit hole. And it helped my running because I was cross training in a more efficient way.
Right.
And, I wasn't doing necessarily branded CrossFit. I was actually working out at DSCC, which was this amazing facility in Columbus, Ohio that was a defense installation, but a massive airplane hangar full of a gym. And
wow.
It was like a box just like this. So it was just full of arsenal,
Wow.
But anyways, being functionally fit is applicable in so many different ways, and especially for so many different careers as well. So in particular, like the military route, law enforcement route, first responder route in any capacity, you can imagine where being trained in all 3 of these metabolic pathways is ideal, but you never ever want to crash, right? What if, so going to a real world scenario that actually happened. I also have I am a sucker for military conflict history as well. I'm a nerd with.
Told you guys.
I'm a nerd with a couple of different things, but in particular, I like World War II history. But then,
at least the stuff you nerd out about, it's more respectable. I'm like, I know anime. I know cartoons. I know superheroes.
Yeah.
You're like back in World War II. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I'm out of my realm here.
Right.
But anyway, go ahead.
Anyways, that was funny. But there was, in particular, I am fascinated with the Mogadishu conflict. And that happened.
What is that?
So the Mogadishu conflict happened in Somalia. Mogadishu, Somalia. There was it's been described as like a hornet's nest. It was a militant led country, one of the poorest countries in the world. And the United States was in there providing UN protection and aid. They were, I might be getting that wrong, but they were working with the UN in some capacity. It's been a few years since I fully nerded out on it.
Yeah.
But there's a particular parts that I'll never forget, right? So like, in particular, for those of you who have watched Black Hawk Down, this is the scenario that is depicted in that movie. And there's a handful of different books out there. And I'm going to get into books when we talk about building an engine. I have one in particular I want to shout out. But as far as this in particular, I wanted to say In the Company of Heroes is a really good book. It's the account of Michael Durant, and he is the helicopter pilot that's actually survived.
Oh, wow.
And he was in captivity for a few days. But the whole scenario, basically, Black Hawk Down, this terrorist organization essentially did a land-to-air anti-aircraft weapon, took down one of our Black Hawks. And we had a policy, or have a policy, I would say, that there's no soldier left behind, right? So they sent in crews and fire teams to go like extract, right, all the bodies and everything that was happening. But in the process, we actually lost another Black Hawk. And to be honest, I don't want to talk military strategy because I'm not an expert. I like to talk about it sometimes, but this is not the time or place. But essentially, we learned a lot of what not to do in that situation.
Gotcha.
And one of the things that happened was after a very, very, very long firefight, securing different areas and like letting the battlefield engineers do what they needed to do with the Blackhawks. They pulled out of that sector of the Mogadishu, which was incredibly hostile territory. And the UN came in, started escorting them, but there was a fire team, maybe a platoon, not a platoon, squad size, 10 to 15, essentially, getting escorted back to base, friendly territory, but the UN vehicles, which were like AMRAPs, they just went ahead of them. So there's this term called the Mogadishu Mile. The Mogadishu Mile is what these people experienced in this moment, where they've been up for countless hours. I mean, I'm talking like 32 hours in a firefight, no food, little water, like
fighting for their life.
Yeah. And literally experiencing what we could probably have another episode about rhabdomyolysis, experiencing onset of that. And they had to run full battle rattle a mile to safety. And like, how do you trade for that?
Right.
Because that's an outside stimulus that you're likely not going to experience in any given lifetime. But how do you...
That's an interesting thought, yeah.
How do you prepare for that moment if that ever did happen?
Right. And I think a lot of people hear scenarios like that and they're like, yeah, it can never happen. But it's like, okay, but what if it did?
But what if it did?
Right. What would you do?
Are you fit for your environment?
Yeah, exactly. No, and I agree. And doing CrossFit, as we all do, kind of like sets you up for those kinds of things. And we've kind of touched on it a little bit, talking about the mental side of things. I feel like doing CrossFit, suffering through these workouts, suffering with people, you tend to learn that mental capacity. You learn, okay, it's going to end one day. You know what I mean? Like, this will be over at some point. Like, this sucks, but it will be over. It's like when you're in the middle of a 20-minute AMRAP and it's, 11 minutes in, you're like, I have 9 minutes left.
I was thinking minute 13.
Yeah, right, that works too. But, yeah, you're just like, how much can I keep going? Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. There's people, like you were saying, like with that mile, it's like, yeah, they literally, they're peeing Coca-Cola because of rhabdo. It's like their muscles were breaking down faster than their body could actually process this, and they're literally dying. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, you need to get from here to there, and like, can you run and make it?
Yeah, and something else I'd like to point out, minute 13, what's really interesting in a 20-minute AMRAP, minute 13, something goes wrong. And how do you keep cool in that moment?
Yeah. I mean, good question. And a lot of training goes into that, and that's the stuff that we don't really talk about much in class. Like, hey guys, all right, we're getting ready to snatch. That's, it's like we don't talk about these mental side of things.
No, you can't. It's an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Like a podcast. We're taking forever. But no, like I remember when so this is kind of first world problems, but I got a tattoo on my right rib cage. It took 7 hours. I did it in 3 different sessions because basically I just got to the end of my mental capacity of dealing with pain, and I just told her stop. I was like, all right, I'm done. She goes, okay, cool, see you in 2 months when it heals up. Came back in and did it again. So with one of my chest, it was 3.5 hours, and we went straight through. I didn't stop them. This was post doing CrossFit. This is pre doing CrossFit. Nice. So my mental capacity was, I know that I can get through this. So when he's like, do you want to take a break? I'm like, no, I don't, because I knew that I could get through it. I knew it was going to end one day. So like the idea of training in the way that we do kind of helps build a lot of that mental strength, a lot of that mental
fortitude.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that is missed a lot in life today. And we kind of talked about this, and I don't want to dive into it deep because I really want this I like this conversation. I want to make it for another podcast.
Yep.
But you talked about the Theodore Roosevelt, talking about like the basically, I mean, you can name what it is, but basically what it's saying is if you were to go back, 1,000 years or whatever, like you had to fight for your food, you had to fight for your life, you had to,
You have to hunt.
You have to hunt, right?
You gotta
No
be
matter
physical.
everybody.
But also not hunt. You have to be smart too.
Yes.
So like you can't be to be fit for your environment. You cannot be the absolute fastest person in the world,
Yep.
but be dumb.
Yep.
Right.
Because you're just going to run straight into
off
death.
a cliff. Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The lemur. What is it? The lemurs or what was it? The
dodos.
dodo.
Right?
Where like they followed each other off the cliff. Anyway, yes.
The last melon.
Yeah.
Shout out to what was that? Ice Age.
Yeah. But no, it's like you have to be smart. You have to be like not athletic, but in shape and those things. And that's kind of how it used to be. And basically, this time in our country, in a lot of them, it's like the saying is what hashtag first world problems. And the reason behind that is because it's like, oh, my iPhone's screen's broke. Oh, my life's over. And it's like, no, it's not. Like it's something you don't even need to survive.
You know what the most liberating thing to me is, and my wife hates me for this. I will leave my phone
And we're back. So had a little technical difficulty. You'd think I'd learned by the last time. But no, ran out of space on the SD card. But we're good to go now. So we kind of left off on that last little part. It'll be a quick break for you guys, but for us it was a good 5-10 minutes. We left off basically leading into the different energy pathways and how to like train them and how to do that. And you've got a website here that kind of talks about it. And and obviously we have some knowledge, but make sure that we get it right. But so you want to talk about we want to talk about how to lead into training each energy pathway, and then I would like to maybe lean into how that helps overall with multiple things.
Each individual pathway. So, phosphagen, it's pretty easy to talk about. That's going to be your high explosive movements under 10 seconds. Think like a deadlift, power clean, a max box jump. In a sporting context, that could be something like
a 40-yard dash or
40,
yeah, just something super quick.
And then your glycotic systems, that's going to be your typical metcons, right? Like you're going to be going in and out of these different energy pathways, right? Metabolic pathways, but that's due to the stimulus and the intensity and the volume, right? So as far as the glycotic pathway, you're going to be hitting that with a lot of the metcons that we do in the gym. And then the oxidative stuff, right? That's where we're rounding this out and kind of focusing on is going to be how to build a better engine. And, that's the word engine, right, is a very slang term thrown around in the CrossFit community. So I think it's a good idea for us to define that. For the purpose of the rest of this conversation.
So when I think of it, obviously, I think engine doesn't have a specific definition. I think each person kind of has their own way of looking at it, and then you can tell me if you're aligned with me or if you have your own way of thinking. But I think when I think engine, I think of doing a workout to where if it's an 8-minute workout, 12-minute workout, 15-minute workout, whatever the time domain is for these workouts, you're able to keep moving through them consistently in a quick way. And that doesn't necessarily mean like sprinty fast for 15 minutes. That just means like if we're doing like 30 pull-ups, can you do them unbroken in a good, smooth manner, like butterfly kipping, whatever it is. And then if it's a barbell movement, can you walk over the barbell or, get there quickly and then keep moving the barbell. So when I think engine, I think you're moving, like you never stop moving, just like a diesel engine just never stops. It just kind of like keeps going. That's what I think of when I think of engine. Like you're able to recover whenever it's downtime from like moving from the pull-up bar to the barbell or from the barbell to the rower, or you're able to recover while doing a movement. So like rowing or some kind of something that's monotonous, like skiing, rowing, biking, running. Something like that. You're able to recover your breathing, your heart rate comes back down, your breathing settles a little bit. You're able to kind of find this like, okay, I'm back, and okay, when I get in, I can actually like attack it, and learning to breathe and stuff like that. I think that's what the thought process for me of what the definition of engine is.
And yeah, I would agree with a lot of that, especially the learning how to breathe part. I mean, this is cardiovascular health that we're addressing when we're attacking the oxidative pathway, right? So that is obviously a direct correlation.
Yep.
And so your ability to breathe efficiently in a organized manner. I actually was, I was done with the workout and I was trying to encourage everyone else to finish. And there was a new guy. He was doing these burpee box jump overs, and just to remain anonymous, I wouldn't hate to put anyone on the spot, but one of the things I was trying to convey to him, and this is probably bad for any coach to do in certain degrees, but sometimes I felt like the need that it could have benefited him in the moment, but trying to give him a cue when he is entering that like dark space, right?
The pain cave.
The pain cave, whatever you want to label that as. And sometimes as a coach, you just gotta let him do it. But I was trying to tell him like have a repeatable process with the burpee over bar movement. That way your breathing is in check and monotonous and like in a rhythm.
During a workout, it's probably like a weird time to talk about that.
It's hard.
But in the sense of you're deep in that pain cave, really you're just trying to focus on not dying. Yes. But yeah, in a typical workout, like, and I explained that the other day when we were doing the box jump overs, I think, yeah, I can't remember. Anyway, so we did box jump overs, I think it was Thursday, something like that. And I was talking about trying to have it was box step overs, dumbbell box step overs. That's what it was.
It was a trap. You said it was a trap.
Yeah, it was a trap. Yeah. And because the reps were really, really short, and it's a trap because you're like, cool, I'll sprint it, but it's a lot of rounds, and what tends to happen is you sprint the first couple of rounds, and then you're just trying to hang on. But what I was trying to get my point across before each class was on these step overs to have a repeatable pattern. So if you're like stumbling around, stepping off the box with the wrong foot, and you're not really thinking about it, and you're trying to move, you're wasting a ton of energy trying to just maintain a tight core, maintain your composure to where you're not just like dropping the dumbbell, you're not falling all over the place. That's what I was saying. Like every time I step over, I literally step the same spot every single time, whether I'm going from the right side of the box or the left side of the box. I step the same direction or the same pattern. But anyway, and that kind of goes to what you were saying is it's like whenever you're running, or swimming. So a lot of times whenever you swim, you breathe every 1 stroke, every 2 strokes, every 3 strokes, every 4, whatever it is.
Depending on the capacity.
Exactly. Or volume. You're right. You breathe, or even like environment.
Right.
Open water versus pool. But anyway, so it's like you try to have a repeatable pattern so that's something that's happening in the background. You're not even thinking about it. That way you're not wasting energy and time trying to figure that out during that. So it goes back to what you're saying is using those repeatable patterns help a ton in being able to build the engine without having to think about the other things.
Absolutely. And I'll also say you can find your breath, right? We always talk about your red line, which is kind of funny. Like when I was a fitness professional, I always used to use a car as a euphemism for your body, right? So for one, nutrition, going back to that for a hot second, I always used to say you would never fuel your car with water.
Right.
And so you need dense nutrition, complex carbs, lean proteins, I always say if I had a face or grew in the ground like that's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
I grew in the ground recently, I should say. Both of those things recently. Yeah. Over processed meats is a no-go, but that's a topic for a different time. But bringing it back around to building that engine, you really gotta. Your body acts like a car in the sense that if your fuel lines are clean, they're efficient, you're able to go and have a good miles per gallon, right? You're efficient and you're running it. Think about Nikki, right? She ran collegiately and she was an absolute stud at the University of Utah. We have running
workouts. It's like, well, there's Nikki.
I use her as a rabbit.
5 minutes later, there's everybody else. Yeah.
I literally use Nikki as a rabbit every single time. And I actually purposely, and I've told her this before, I actually go out of my way to try to sign up for the same class as her whenever there's a running WOD, because she pushes me. Yeah. And that's a special thing to have, right? Like, that's what CrossFit is for. Like, you can't be the best in everything, right? And you have to find the people that are
better than you at those things. Yeah.
And it's good to have people around you that are better than you.
So kind of going on that, like she ran for a long time. And you know what I mean? Yep. So she was able to build that base, that foundation of her running. So any kind of like longer endurance-y workouts, she tends to smash.
Absolutely.
So whenever we're looking at CrossFit, so you have your different pathways that we've talked about. So one, the beginning ones help the later ones, but you still have to train the later ones. So whenever you're training these phosphatogen, like the 10 seconds on a bike with a 2.5 minute rest, or like power cleans or deadlift, any of those things, like that is going to help the glycolytic system in the sense of like we're going to work that to transfer, and it's going to help you get into that system. It's going to help build that, but you still have to build that system. So whenever you're thinking about like, okay, cool, I want to build a better engine, but where do I start? Because we've been talking for almost an hour and we haven't really said where to start.
We're going to start.
But where to start these things is typical CrossFit. We're in an hour. We're going to get these things in. We're going to drill your first two pretty well. Absolutely. So where a lot of CrossFit misses is going to be that last one. So that last one is, to me, is the easiest one to kind of add in. Do an extra hour's worth of running or, whatever. And I know some people are like, holy shit, run for an hour? Don't. Go run for 10 minutes. Go run a mile. Go run 400. Or like intervals, play your VO2 max. The best way to make that better is going to be interval style training.
That's proven.
2 on, 2
backed by
off,
science.
3 on, 1
Absolutely.
off. It's like, or 1 on, 1 off, minute wise. Run 400, rest 1 to 1. However long it took you, rest that amount of time. Do that 6 times, 5 times, 4 times, 3 times, 10 times, whatever it is that you're able to withstand and hold on. Those kinds of extra trainings help. I remember I was doing training for like the marathon stuff, and I was doing CrossFit and training and stuff. And on my days that I was coming in and doing CrossFit, I would do a mile before and then a mile after, because I'm still getting in some running to help out with the amount of poundage on the pavement and stuff like that. But I was still able to get some of that extra running and stuff in. So the oxidative one is the one that helps the most. Or that's the one that helps the most on breathing, like you were saying, learning to recover, helps your body learn how to shuttle out CO2, helps your body how to handle oxygen when you do take that big deep breath. It teaches you the breathing patterns. It teaches you all these different ways of training. Is there anything else you want to touch on that? Because the next subject I want to bring up is going to be how to introduce that into your typical workout regimen.
Perfect. And what I wanted to touch on is the different aspects that you need to take in consideration when you're looking at programming a extra workout to build this better engine. So there's a few different ways you could do strength endurance. And so there's like a workout called the Iron Triathlon.
Yeah.
I've never done it
I haven't either.
successfully.
Yeah.
I've done it, tried a few times, but I've tapped out. It's just like a lot.
It's 20 down to 1 of bench press, deadlifts, and is it
power cleans,
Okay.
but it's all based on your body weight.
Right. And it's 20, 19, 18. You do 20 of each one, 19 of each one. And it takes hours. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so like you can work on your strength endurance where you're working on maybe some of those like well, we should actually rewind for just a hot second. We've been talking about these pathways, and fitness is fluid. And so therefore, in any given workout or task, or anytime you're raising your heart rate, you're going to be moving through these different metabolic pathways pretty fluidly, especially in a Metcon, because you could be going from like before I was saying, a conversational ability to hold a conversational state to not, and that happens real quick in some Metcons, right? So I want to point out that this is all fluid. And so how do you incorporate that to build the endurance over time? You can incorporate those compounding strength movements in a larger volume, but in a controlled way where you're taking longer rest per sets, or lower weight than you typically would for a shorter workout.
Yeah, like EMOMs are really good for stuff like that.
Yep.
Little short AMRAPs are really good for that. So you could be like, I'm going to take 60% of my 1 rep of this power clean, and I'm going to do 20 seconds as many reps as I can. Then I'm going to rest for a minute 40. So you're going every 2 minutes basically, and you're able to build some kind of strength endurance where it's not necessarily like 10% of your 1 rep max and you're going to do 100 reps at it.
Right.
We're going to add a little bit of weight on the bar, like 70%, and we're going to AMRAP that for 3 minutes, rest for 3 minutes, and repeat that 3 times.
Absolutely.
So like that's one way to do it. So that's where you kind of get your strength endurance.
And I think an appropriate apparatus for this is kettlebells. You can utilize kettlebells for any body.
Yep.
Any body can pick up a kettlebell and it's going to be useful. Whereas like a barbell, sometimes you have to really ramp an athlete up to.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just really intimidating. It's really intimidating.
It is intimidating.
And then just kind of the barrier to entry on kettlebell cleans, kettlebell snatches, those things you need to teach because there is a lot of form to that. But it is less intimidating for me to hand someone a pink kettlebell than a barbell.
It's an incredible tool.
A pink kettlebell is 18 pounds, so it's like, okay, cool. You pick up dog food bags heavier than this,
incredibly
you'll be
applicable.
fine. Right. And but yeah, you have like your strength endurance, you have your regular endurance.
Then you have your aerobic and lactative thresholds. And so like the way that I would say that your lactative thresholds are going to be more along the lines of your anaerobic over time, like maybe your 8-minute Metcon. And then your aerobic capacity, it's different for everyone, right? So universally, like we're talking about these 3 different pathways. The first one being 10 seconds of work typically. And then obviously that can vary person to person, but the variance is small. And then the glycotic system, that's typically at 2 minutes, and the variance is a little higher there from person to person, but it's not nearly as wide as when you talk about the oxidative system.
Right.
And we're talking about athletes of all different types of backgrounds. I mean, you could probably point out, I'm sure there's like a handful of people in this gym that have ran marathons, you know, but there's like probably more people that haven't.
Yo, for hands down, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
And I think that speaks volumes. Not volume. I should rewind and retract that statement. No one should
run a marathon.
Yeah. If you want to, there's definitely ways to do so, and smart ways to do so.
Right.
But it's not necessarily natural for the human body to do so. And
no.
You also the ramp up time to a half marathon compared to a marathon is not proportional.
No.
You have months and months and months of preparation
right.
for full. There's something about, for me, it was the 20.5 mile hit point. I just all of my glycogen stores were depleted to nothing. My aerobic capacity was shot. I was literally sitting on the pavement because my legs were spazzing out. I would get up, walk as far as I can, sit down again. And I had the medics circling me on the bikes, and I was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base on the far side of that flight line, and it was hot. Dude.
Yeah.
And muggy because it's Ohio and there's swamps back
gross.
There. But I was able to just pound goose, and that was my downfall in this scenario, is that I neglected my nutrition in mile 15. It came back and bit me in the butt a half hour, 45 minutes later when my glycogen stores crashed. And so I'm throwing these back. I'm throwing back water. And a half hour goes by. I was able to digest some of that, and I started trotting. And I figured finally completed it at a trot, not a run.
Right.
But there's something about that threshold that the human body is it's not natural.
Right.
But you can work up to that.
You got those people that run the 100-milers and the
mad
beyond.
Respect.
Right. But learning, you were saying, so the difference between training for a half versus a full is going to be preparation, in the sense of making sure that you're making the right progress. So if you're not tracking these things, what's your 5K time? I have no idea. Okay, well, how do you know if you're getting better or not? And that's what's the beauty of CrossFit is. Lambert's not here, so I had to say the beauty of CrossFit is that it's you're constantly tracking to make sure you're making the right progress. Sometimes some PRs and some progress is way slower, and sometimes it's faster. So whenever you're training for longer oxidative things, that longer state, tracking, okay, I'm going to go run and keep my heart rate at around 150, 160, keep it below 160 for sure, breathing through my nose, breathing through my mouth, whatever.
Repeatable process,
exactly.
Yep.
And I'm going to run an hour. So I did this for a while to where I was monitoring on my heart rate. I check it about every couple minutes. Once I got over 160, I'd slow way back. And then I got to a point where I was running 12 or 13 minute miles at the very beginning. And then near the ending of this training cycle, I was running 8 to 9 minute miles in that same conversational pace. Like you were saying, my heart rate's way lower and I'm able to maintain this. And that's just because my body adapted and it got used to it. But that took months. That took a lot of months. So if I were to say we're going to do a 4-week strength cycle, you could probably add 5 pounds to your back squat in 4 weeks, maybe, depending on the duration of your training, those kinds of things. So the longer things, like that longer training, takes a little bit longer to kind of give that up. So
absolutely.
So scaling in class, and whenever we're doing workouts, that's it has a 12-minute cap, and you're I'm going to finish it, and it takes you 15 or 18 minutes. It's look, okay, you missed the mark. I'm not saying that you needed to have a 6-minute time whenever it's a 12-minute cap. I'm saying that you need to be below 12 minutes, even if it's 11:59.
I think we should definitely talk about scaling here in the near future.
Yeah.
But because I could talk for hours on that as well about how it's appropriate for every body to scale and why. And I often scale. Right. I scale up, I scale down. Right. Also, I shout out to ring rows. I don't think that's a scaled movement at all.
Hell no. It's so funny. Every time I'm do ring rows today, people are really? And I'm just do them and see what happens.
Yeah, literally, you get eye rolls about it all the time. I'm over here yo, that's not a scaled exercise. That is hard.
Do a set of 10 with your feet really low. scaling, it's rough.
And you can get weird with it too.
Yeah.
With like weights or
All the good
like
things.
raising your feet on a bench or something like that.
But yeah, so like scaling up or down is a way of kind of progressing forward. So.
Or even in the middle too, like the froggy workouts. I've done like medium stuff. Like for example, there was a GHD programmed, and then for the froggy, but for the class it was a toaster bar. I kind of wanted to get something in between. No, I'm getting this wrong. It was a sit up and a toaster bar, and I wanted something in between because my hands were ripped. I decided to do toaster rings in between.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I knew my body that day. I wanted a little something extra there in the core, but I didn't want to go too ham sauce on the GHDs, which we should also have another conversation about that with midline positioning. But it's really important to know your body and respect it too, because if you're scaling inappropriately, then you are failing yourself when it comes to recovery.
Exactly. And like you're saying, like not necessarily like you knew your body, you knew what you wanted to do, but like you're saying, if you come in and you're like, I'm going all in every day, all day, and I'm going to do 100% RX to everything, and it's like, and you're not ready for that, you're doing yourself a disservice because your body is unable to recover because you haven't built up that base yet.
Yep.
That base of fitness of, okay, if I do 100 GHD sit-ups, and am I going to be okay? Like, yeah, I'll be sore, but can I function? Yesterday we did 80 GHD sit-ups over the course of 8 rounds with 10 each time, and every round felt great. Today I'm a little sore, like thinking about it, but I'm fine. Like I was able to function. I know some people that come in, they're like, I've never done GHDs, and they'll do like freaking 80 or 60 or 50. And I'm like, okay, you don't like 30 tops, 20.
That scares me for rhabdomyolysis.
Right.
It's like,
and the reasoning for rhabdo happening with GHDs is the negative portion. So the sit up has nothing to do with it. It's the lowering of because you get tired and you start falling back faster and faster and faster.
Movement.
Yeah, which can cause that to happen.
We should talk about that.
At some point, yeah, we will. We'll dive into that. But with the GHDs as one, a lot of times people think I need to do more sit-ups to get more abs, and that goes back to the nutrition. So the GHD sit-ups, the regular sit-ups, toes to bar, toes to ring, all those things are just to build core strength. It's not really to build core, like in the sense of like I want washboard abs, so I'm just going to do sit-ups all day every day. It has nothing to do with that. And then easing yourself into these things. If someone comes in and they do 100 GH dips, they're probably going to get, or 100 GHD sit-ups, they're probably going to get rhabdo. They're going to be like, I can't sneeze, I can't cough, I can't laugh.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it hurts to get out of bed. It's like, okay, so now we've really pushed off that recovery phase to where it's like now we're really working uphill whenever you could have just done 10, maybe 15 and been sore, but you've been able to recover. Sometimes we do stuff that you're like way sore and it's like, okay, yes, that might have been good for that, but we're going to spend the next couple of days recovering. But if you're like, I can't even walk upstairs, then yeah, you went way too far into that.
Way too far. And so I really want to really use this as a segue to say that you're scaling through your longer duration workouts needs to be ramped up appropriately.
Yeah.
So you don't do a couch to 5K in a week. You do a couch to 5K in like 5.
Yeah, it's like months. Yeah, it's like a month and a half, something like
or
that. Or
something like that. That's what that famous programming is for, which is actually absolutely genius and incredibly like intriguing to people that are looking to get off their couch and run a 5K.
Because the thought process isn't, all right, Shayne, you've never worked out or you haven't worked out in 5 years. Let's get up. Let's go run a 5K. It's no, let's walk to the end of the block and back.
And it doesn't matter if you're sedentary or an elite athlete.
Right.
You need to be able to scale appropriately that outside stimulus, or else you're going to get injured. And we're not here to get injured.
No. And I have that conversation with people more often than you believe. They'll be like, I just don't want to get injured. And I'm like, yeah, no, I mean, I don't want you to get injured either. Duh. But so introducing these into your training regimen so I did a seminar with Bobby Maximus, Rob McDonald, same guy. He was
Bobby
talking.
Maximus.
Remember that name?
Very familiar. Unfortunately I've never met. Hopefully one day I will. But
super nice guy.
Super nice.
His Instagram persona is literally polar opposite of how he is in real life. Super nice guy. He's very douchey on his Instagram.
Well,
But,
I'm wondering if that was because the environment that you were in. He was in a
Yes,
seminar
gym.
environment.
Well, no, I know him personally. Like
really?
I've eaten dinner with his family, and
that's awesome.
he knows Tommy super
Right.
super well. So I got introduced to that. I've got to know him on the personal side of things pretty well. But anyway, so basically how he explained how he ramped up programming for Tommy and their team throughout them competing at the games was they went from 1 hour a day in the gym to working out 2 to 3 times a day. And it was like, how was that process? And he wrote it down beautifully. Like he wrote down this whole like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And he was like, all right, so we have 1 hour a day. And it's like, we're going to do this for a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever. And he goes, now what we're going to do is we're going to add in on a Monday, you're going to get up and you're going to do an hour walk in the morning. Then you're going to come in the evening and do your normal programming. We're going to do that for a month.
Introducing 2 days.
Exactly. Slowly. And he was
in
like,
a very
methodical
soft,
way.
methodical
Yes.
way.
And what he was saying was, he goes, now we're going to monitor your normal training time. If your normal training time or normal training, say, level, like if you come in and you're able to push this hard, drops because of this added in, then we know we need to take that hour back to 30 minutes and we need to do that. And he was like, okay, so cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that hour of walking and turn it into running. Take that hour of running, turning into, we're going to do another Metcon. And he was like, and this is just 1 day a week that we're going to add this in. And he's like, once you feel like you can get up, do that, go to the gym, hit the gym like a normal training session, then we're going to add another day. So we had Monday, we're going to add it to another morning walk on Wednesday. So you're going to get up Monday morning, do your Metcon, go in later on that evening, do your other Metcon and lifting and stuff. Tuesday's a normal day. Wednesday, we're going to get up and do a 30-minute walk. Wednesday evening, normal training session. And he wrote this down to where he basically covered 2 years. And he was like, by the end of two to 5 years, we're now doing 2 full sessions every single day, 6 days a week. And then on the 7th day, we're just going to go for a hike. That's an easy, simple 2-hour hike. Don't even get out of breath. Maybe you'll sweat because it's hot.
You're on a conversational pace the whole time.
Like even more of a conversational pace. But he basically wrote that out to like, this is how we can introduce these extra things. And the moment that you start doing these extra stuff starts taking away from your normal training regimen, then you need to pull back on those extra things. And the reason why is because now we're under recovering.
Under recovery.
And there's a lot of talk where it's like you're overtraining. I don't think that there's a such thing as overtraining. I think there's a such thing as under recovering.
Yes.
Because there's people that run 5-6 hours a day and they do that all the time. And it's like, why are they built different than this person? Yes, everybody's different. But the issue is this person has built up to that capacity to be able to maintain that and still function and to be able to hit it hard each day. Like there's a Froning's team, anytime people go there and live there to train, they're always like the first 2 to 4 weeks, they're just like, everything hurts and I'm sore. And then out of nowhere, they're training like he is. Multiple sessions a day, multiple hours a day. They're just diving in head first, which I do not recommend for anybody. But there's a reason that Froning, and because he's known for working out multiple hours a day for hours, like 8 hours of training. It's insane. But he's built that up over the course of 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
And that's what people like to skip over. So if you guys are listening to this and you're like, okay, I want to build a better engine, I want to get to where I can breathe better, take 1 day a week, add in an extra run.
Well, and it doesn't even have to be a run.
No. It can be a bike. It can be, anything.
Hiking, skiing, trail running. I talked to you guys earlier about why I personally love trail running. But I'm also a big skier. So we can talk about that at a different time, about how I utilize CrossFit to enhance my mountain pursuits. But also something to consider is rucking. Rucking is something used by the military.
Yep.
And I mean, it's incredibly cheap. You use what is called pig eggs, and just like a sandbag duct taped, and you can load it up with a ruck with 1, 2, 3 different pig eggs based on your training and your training plan. And what's incredible about this is like, especially for women, this is cool, is that the outside stimulus of the weight and not and moving over time, right? It's the same thing as backpacking. And maybe you do a ruck run, which I would work up to that. Let's asterisks right there.
Yeah.
Work up to a ruck run. But you can go out there and hike like with weight. And
it could be
even
10 pounds. It could be 8 pounds. It could be 5 pounds. It could be 20 pounds.
Everything could be scalable. So if you
30.
wanted to go out with your family, and maybe you wanted to go out with your grandma and go for a walk, and like she wanted to get some exercise too because she knows you're fit and it's a big part of your life, and she wants to spend some time with you, she can get positive adaptation by only throwing 5 pounds in a backpack.
Yeah, bone density, all the good things.
All the good things, the bone density, avoiding osteoporosis, all the good. Women benefit so much from weight training.
Yep.
There's so many studies coming out now for rucking in particular and how it benefits women. But we can sidebar that.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm bringing all of these different things up is that it could be anything. It could be going for a weekend hike down in southern Utah to Arches. There's a 13-mile loop that is phenomenal. It's called the Devil's Garden. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's like visiting Mars, and it's a 13-mile.
It's wild.
You could trail run that if you wanted. You could hike it with your family if you wanted. And this is something that, done outside of the gym appropriately, is incredible for your body. But not only that, your mental state.
Right. And then adding in all this extra stuff, like slowly, helps so much if that is your goal. If your goal is to build a better engine, your goal is to do these things, awesome, add them in. But that's what's fun about CrossFit is that we, in taking a class and doing a program that a gym is providing, is that you don't need to do all this stuff. Like there's like, literally no one needs to add in all these extra stuff. But if you're just like, man, I'm really feeling it, I want to get ready for skiing this year, for mountain biking, I want to get to where I can breathe a little bit better, cool, add in this extra little bit. And if it's not affecting what's going on in the gym, it's not affecting your day-to-day life in like joints and just like I said earlier, like I can't walk up these stairs because my legs hurt too bad, cool, then we probably went too far. Like you need to pull it back.
And I spoke to you yesterday in particular about joint pain and avoiding that. I do want to shout out fish oil as well. If you're going to be putting on the miles, it might be, I mean, it should be something that you're considering anyway as a quote supplement. And I'm not a big supplement guy in general.
No, but everybody's basically deficient in these things.
And introducing omega-3, 6, and 9s is incredible for anyone that is increasing their miles, biking, running, anything like that.
But yeah,
it's good for weightlifters too. So I would encourage anyone to look into that. Yeah. But anyways, let's talk about tracking too. And CrossFit in nature is measurable, which is very unique to different training plans. And not saying that different other training plans aren't measurable, because I remember ramping up for, let's say, a football season, it is typically a percentile based training regimen. So therefore it is absolutely measurable.
Right.
But with CrossFit, you've touched on it before, like how let's measure my 5K time now versus maybe at the end of the summer, see how it enhanced.
Right.
And you know, I'm not saying that everyone should go out and do a 5K. Like you also have to realize where you're at too.
Right. And it's just an easy. Everybody knows what a 5K run is. You know what I mean? Like if I say, all right, we're going to do a squat snatch, not everybody knows what that means, but everybody knows what a 5K run is. So it's just an easy way to throw that out there. But like you were saying with tracking, so you can get multiple things from tracking. So like you asked me earlier if I'm still wearing my Whoop band, which tracked my sleep, which tracked my calorie burn, which tracked my workouts, all these different things.
It also estimates your VO2 max. Am I wrong?
No, it does not. That I'm aware of, unless they just added that in there. I'm not sure.
Up.
No,
but other data points though.
Yeah, because you can get a ton of data, and you might be able to correlate like what your VO2 max could be from the data that's given from a Whoop band. But no, there's different ways of tracking, and you don't always need to see that bar move up in the sense of like, okay, I PR'd this, I PR'd that. I set a record on this. I've never done that. I've never lifted this much. If sometimes just holding a flat line is better than not, because as soon as it takes that dip, there's a reason that we're going backwards.
Yes.
And if we don't have a dip followed by an immediate drive up, then a lot of times people will kind of reach the end of their training regimen. They'll have a deload. You have that dip, and then it should drive right back up. But if we don't have at least a flat and then kind of moving up in some kind of trajectory, then there's a reasoning. Yes. And tracking, that's another reason why we track. We track our weightlifting. Like, okay, you back squatted 300 pounds, and you haven't hit a PR in 10 years, but you've consistently hit 300 pounds.
That's a win.
You're right. Let's talk about these factors, like what's your age, what's your outside the gym life, like is it full of stress, like Are you able to get full nutrition? Are you working 12-hour shifts as a nurse or a doctor? You know what I mean? Like, there's certain reasons. And if your stress, external stress, is super high, but you're able to maintain, then awesome. You're doing a lot of the right stuff in order to maintain that. But if it's dipping, it's like we got to figure out what we're doing wrong.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get vulnerable here from personal experience as of late too. Your body does not know the difference between mental stress and physical stress at times.
No. You ever heard of the book Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers?
No.
You haven't?
I've not.
So James Serby, that used to coach for us, told me to listen to it. I listened to the book, and it is so fucking boring. But it literally discusses that.
Really? Okay.
A car swerves at you, your heart rate shoots up, and adrenaline dump. Same thing as, all right, we're going to go work out. 3, 2, 1, go, adrenaline dump. Mm-hmm. Okay, same thing as like your kid is falling off a ledge and you're trying to catch it. It's like a little 3-foot drop, and you're trying to, your body sees stress as stress as stress.
Yes. And me personally, I've actually been in a season of stress for the past about like 6 months probably. And it might have been evident in the gym. And I want to apologize for anyone.
Good.
I know Britt once thought I was mad at her or someone at the gym. I was completely not. It was just work-related stress. And for those of you who don't know, I used to be in the fitness industry professionally, but I've made a turn into technology since after moving to Utah. So I was in a high-stress tech sales job, but that's changed. But I also just bought a house, so there's different types of stress.
Right. It's good stress, bad stress.
And I can honestly and proudly say that I have maintained my fitness.
Right.
I haven't grown.
Right. But you've maintained.
I've maintained, and that's a win in this season of my life.
And it's hard for people to recognize that, because you see everybody else PR and you see everybody else doing better. Oh, this person did faster, but why didn't I? And it's like, well, okay. Like for us, like whenever we bought the business, like we dealt with a ton of stress on buying the business, dealing with the city, trying to get all of our stuff set up and my fitness just went straight down. And like every day I was just like, I don't even want to do this. Didn't matter how much pre-workout I took. It didn't matter anything. It was just like through the floor, because stress is stress is stress. Mm-hmm. So if you're adding in more work and your stress load is going up, and you're starting to see a negative on your normal training time, and then we need to pull it back.
You need to pull it back. Because it needs to be relative, and it needs to be appropriate.
Yes.
And if you're in a season of stress in your life, maybe it's not a good time to really attack a certain facet of fitness.
Right.
Because you are learning, and you can maintain in seasons of stress. And like I kept saying, it was a win for me to do so.
Yeah, because you haven't lost.
I haven't lost.
So we can still gain, even though you haven't lost, even though you dealt with a ton of stress throughout other things. Mm-hmm. So know that if you're someone that's like you have a newborn, or you just bought a house, or you're switching jobs, like maybe there's
family
problems.
stress.
That's what I was about to bring. Family stress, any kind of things that's bringing in. It's not a way of like having an excuse of like, but okay, all right, cool, we get it. Everybody stresses, but on the other side, it's like, okay, you need to acknowledge that and know that can be having a big effect on fitness. Mm-hmm. You can make you literally having extra stress can make you gain weight.
Straight up.
Your nutrition can be dialed in. You could be kicking ass every day you come into the gym, but you have tons of stress of like from work. Mm-hmm. You can gain 10 pounds just from that added stress, because your body sees it as like, all right, cool, we're about to go through a famine. So hang it on,
hanging on.
Yeah. So it's like, that's another thing to think about. So whenever you're adding in these extra 2-a-days, and I know we mainly talked about cardio. So if you're adding in extra strength training, make sure that you're eating appropriately to maintain recovery. 2, you're monitoring everything. Mm-hmm. How's your life? Like, how are you feeling? Are you feeling okay? Like I added in a ton of
sleep.
I was going to Vasa, one of the Globo gyms here, in the morning, and I was doing like I do chest day, back day, leg day, and I did that for about a month and a half. Fuck, my entire body broke down. My knees started hurting. It hurt to sleep. It hurt to move. And I was like, well, I'm not doing this anymore. So I stopped that, and I stopped squatting for like 2 or 3 weeks. My knees feel amazing now. Mm-hmm. And it's because I've pulled back that. And if I wouldn't have monitored that and realized that, I'd still be in pain.
Yes.
And it was because of all the added extra. And I went from working out for about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day to doing that, plus another hour of weight training. And I was like, okay, well, my body wasn't ready for that. I needed to do it once a week, and then I needed to do it twice a week, over the course of months, rather than being like, next week I'm going to do 2-a-days, and I'm starting where I'm going to go to Vasa for an hour and a half and do weightlifting and do bodybuilding stuff and then come here and do 2 hours of training. And I didn't change any of my diet. I didn't change any of my recovery protocol. I didn't change in the sense of like rolling out, stretching, all those things. Didn't change any of that shit. Just left it all the same. I dealt with it. My knees were hurting. That was my biggest problem. So like if like going back to you, like you recognize the stress. Okay, cool. I have the stress. As long as I get in a move, I'm going to maintain. I'll be fine. Can't make it to the gym. I'll go do just a little jog, just walk to the park and back, or I'll go do a couple laps at the park, or I'll get outside, maybe do some push-ups and burpees or squats or whatever for like 5 minutes, just kind of relieve some endorphins, maybe get some full range of motion movement, get some blood flow, call it a day.
And even in this season of stress for myself in particular, I actually value skiing over CrossFit. Yeah. Truthfully.
And a lot of people do. If you take like Carlos, like during the winter, like that dude is on the mountain every day.
And I would if I could,
too. Right. And the thought or the reasoning is because that's your release. That's how you're able to get away, and that's how you're able to separate. Right. Like I love snowboarding. I do, but I would never choose that over this.
Yeah.
Because I don't like that as much as I like what I feel after this. And that's fine. And some people, like I've been building Legos, I've been shooting my bow. Yeah. Like I've just like you need to find a way for you to separate, and that's kind of what worked for you, talking about that. And I do want to talk about that on another podcast. I'm talking about applying what you learn and are able to do and how to apply that towards other things, and to recognize maybe that you're getting too overwhelmed about CrossFit. Like people do CrossFit to get better at other stuff until they're in there long enough, and then they're like, I need to get better at CrossFit to get better at CrossFit. It's like, okay.
No, I think people have a misconception about what we're doing here. I mean, the 95% of the athletes that come into any given CrossFit gym are not looking to compete at a high level.
But for whatever reason, people get in there and then they try to think that that's what they need to do. That happens more often than you realize.
Yeah, it happens.
I've been coaching for almost 10 years of CrossFit, so it's like I've seen that. They come in, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to feel better when I play with my kids. I want to go skiing. I want to go mountain biking. 2, 3, 4 months in, they're like, hey, I need to learn butterfly pull-ups. I need to learn how to squat snatch triple body weight. I need to learn. And it's like, why? Why do you need to do that? That's what I'm getting at.
I have a good answer for that, truthfully. So when your body is learning new neurological pathways and new movements, such as a butterfly pull-up, it enhances your ability to learn in other capacities.
Right.
So let's say you are working in the tech field and you are a computer programmer, which we have a few here in the gym. You can stay sharper when you're learning new languages and new frameworks for your computer languages, by sheerly just staying sharp mentally and learning new
right. But I'm not saying learning butterfly pull-ups is bad, because I teach that shit. I'm not saying squat snatches are bad, because I teach that. Yeah. What I'm saying is like learning to be okay with getting better at CrossFit to get better at other things.
Yes.
Because like it is really easy to get caught up in the leaderboard. It's easy to get caught up in these things, and that's what I was referring to. Like totally, like let's learn to handstand walk. You train the inner part of your ear, that way when you get upside down and come back, you're not dizzy, so that whenever you do become older and you're starting to lose your balance, there's a reason why.
Awareness
and there's a reason for training all those things. But what I'm getting at is there's just like getting caught up in the competitive aspect of CrossFit, and
everyone needs to realize when they come in here that egos are checked at the door, and sometimes that's not completely true, and it's unfortunate when that does happen. But as a large part here in the reason why I'm still here is that egos are checked at the door, and it's a good environment to be in, truthfully. But everyone needs to realize that you're running your own race, right? At the end of the day, we're doing this to buy time, right? Because everyone has an expiration date, and we're trying to buy some time and increase our quality of living down the line. Yeah. And that's truly the investment that you are. I mean, CrossFit's not cheap. It is an investment in your future self, in my opinion. And I think that that's lost in some people, and that you're running your own race. Like, you don't need to be able to do a bar muscle up within a month of joining a gym. No. Absolutely not.
No. And that's what I'm referring to is like that. It's like you you walk in, you see bar muscle-ups, ring muscle-ups, overhead squats with like body weight, GHD sit-ups, handstand walking. You see all these high-skill things, and it's like, all right, so here's the things I need to learn. It's like, no, yes, but no. Like,
Correct.
give it time.
Yeah, give it time.
But that's what I was referring to in the sense of like, wait, like give it time, take your time, because the longer, not necessarily the longer, but the more you work on these things to hone it in to make it better, the better you are in the long run. Because now we've set these pathways, it makes things a lot easier in the sense of like learning a new language, learning something else, because now we've set up the fortitude of mentally grinding through something, and also literally building pathways in your brain
and releasing endorphins at good times.
That's a great thing to do. So if you guys have any other questions on like building a better engine, on like how, like when should I add, like what should I add, ask me. Like I have the months programming up front. I can talk to you about different things. Being able to ask Shayne, ask Lambert, ask us, like, because you see Lambert doing extra stuff in here all the time, and there's a reason. It's because he's slowly built up to that.
Absolutely. And in addition, I'd like to go ahead and shout out a book that if anyone is interested in picking up trail running as a hobby and or something to complement what we're doing here at Ute CrossFit, you can talk to me, but more importantly, I learned most of everything that I know from a book called Born to Run. A lot of people have read that already. It's pretty popular around the CrossFit community and circle, but if anyone hasn't read that and is interested in learning how to run efficiently and effectively, and actually I didn't really conceptually think about this, but until I read this book, but as a human being, you're not necessarily ever taught how to run unless you're in a certain circumstance, like my wife growing up in a track family. She was taught how to run very efficiently at an early age, but my gangly butt when I was an awkward little kid was just like all over the place. And slow.
A lot of people don't know is I actually am certified in CrossFit Endurance. I went and took the CrossFit Endurance cert and learned how to teach people how to run.
It's important. Your gait is very important.
Very important. And like move the muscles you're using, all those different things. So yeah, if you got questions, ask me, ask Shayne. He's got read that book, Born to Run. It's pretty solid. The book Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. That's a solid one for you to look into.
Check that out.
Yeah, it's a funny name, but there's a reason for it. It's because they worry about dying from a lion trying to eat them and how to get their food, and that's it.
That's a simple.
They don't worry about like whether Joe over there is talking about his zebra stripes being too spaced apart, or if they're too close together.
More white stripes are versus black stripes.
Right.
Yeah.
There's none of those worries.
Weird, that's relevant.
Right. None of those worries are there. It's all straight up just what's day to day.
Yes.
But yeah, so great podcast, Shayne.
Well, before we wrap up, I have one question for you, Madison.
Yeah, what's up?
What is your favorite burly oxidative based workout?
333.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, 333. Just because it tests multiple different things. You have your capacity to be able to keep doing high output on the rower. You have the skill and coordination of the double unders, and then you have the mental fortitude and that power of being able to push through that 3-mile run. So it's a 3K row, 300 double unders, 3-mile run, go. And that one just came to the head first just because we did it recently, but I really like that one for those reasons.
And I would encourage anyone that wants to build their engine in a more, maybe less of a individual, hey, I'm going to go run a few miles, in more of a CrossFit-y setting, that would be an incredible workout to get a baseline.
Yes. Yeah. Solid. And if that's too much, do one. Or 1K, 100 dubs, 1 mile, or 500 meter row, you know, 50 double unders, 400 meter run.
Or if you don't have your double unders yet, you can do 3-to-1 singles. And I know people roll their eyes at you whenever you say 3-to-1 today. But it's true. I mean, to hit that neurological movement is pretty rough. And so it's important to be taxed in that way because truth be told, if you work on your single unders, you will get better at double unders. It does take time, but you can do
But I like that. Yeah. Pick a base that you can rinse and repeat that's towards a goal that you're wanting to do. Cool.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. I just want to shout out my wife if anyone wants to get involved with Girls on the Run. And those of you who don't know, my wife is the after-school nonprofit director for a social emotional learning program called Girls on the Run. Feel free to reach out. They are actually finishing up their season with some 5Ks this week, but they will be doing a sneaker soiree in the fall and a fall season as well. And they're always looking for volunteers and coaches.
Cool. All right, bud. All right. Good
All right.
podcast. See you guys next time.
See you guys
Later.
Thanks for having me.